Welcome to a special edition of Shop Talk Live. This episode, we've partnered with ISOtunes to talk about and educate y'all on hearing health and hearing protection. It's obvious that a table saw blade with carbide teeth spinning at 10,000 RPM is a danger to you and your body in the wood shop. And there is always dust on every surface of your shop, reminding you of the importance of dust collection and dust masks in the wood shop. One thing that is not obvious until it's too late is the importance of hearing protection. As you'll hear in this conversation, just about everything we do in the wood shop is pushing the boundaries of healthy hearing levels. And unfortunately, the need for hearing protection isn't obvious until the damage has been done, and the damage is irreversible. So in this episode, we sit down with a couple of folks from ISOtunes, and we sit down with an audiologist, and we discuss hearing health and what we should be doing to protect our hearing and why it's so important to protect our hearing. All right, on with the show. So I am here with Kathleen Wallace, Kathleen, the ear doc of TikTok.
It's true. Yeah.
You actually got me on TikTok, first off. And I probably spent an hour and a half clicking through various ear doc videos. It was mesmerizing. Well done. I love the name alone. You should get applause for that. So you are a New York-based audiologist, and you're on the editorial board with Hearing magazine, right? Mm-hmm. Which is associated with the Hearing Foundation, with the Hearing Health Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then we also have director of sales for ISOtunes, Eric. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Ethan, you are the new product development lead at ISOtunes, and you're the one with all the cool gadgets. If anyone's watching on YouTube,
I've been known to have a few gadgets.
There's a bunch of stuff going on in the background, and I've been scoping all of it. It's pretty cool stuff going on there. So the three of us, we thought it would be cool to talk about hearing health first and foremost, and the importance of it, and how easy it is to ignore things, and how detrimental to your health and lifestyle that can become. So Kathleen, can we talk about real quick, can you, like, what are the right off the bat concerns for you as an audiologist for woodworkers, the people listening to this podcast?
Yeah, there's a couple of big things that I think stand out for the whole population, but certainly for woodworkers specifically. And one is that people just don't know what their hearing is. A lot of people have never had their hearing tested or have actively pursued any form of hearing healthcare. Probably since they were in grade school and had some version of a hearing screening. So you're sort of flying blind. You have no idea what your baseline is. And then there is a lot of education that needs to happen. And that's part of what we're doing today with the damage of noise. And that noise doesn't always have to be construction or factories. It can also be woodworking, whether it's a hobby or a profession. And it can also be music on top of it. There's a lot of things that need to be discussed and some very safe, implementable action items that we can talk about to make sure you can do what you want safely. So
I know that 85 decibels seems to be this watermark, right? Mm-hmm. Can you give me a range of what in an everyday environment would be around 85 decibels? Because once you are above 85 decibels, you're starting to venture into dangerous territory. What can we reference that to?
So I think it's a lot lower than people think it is, or softer than people think it is, because even the easiest is voices, right? Where a normal conversation tends to be around 60 dB. Shouting can be 70, 75 dB. So it's not that much louder than a shout. And from the woodworking perspective, essentially every tool you're using is already going to be above that 85 dB. So it's somewhere in between a shout and any of the tools you're using you're going to cross that threshold pretty easily.
You nailed it, because I went around yesterday and the day before, and I was using an app on my phone, and I was taking decibel readings, and it was kind of calming because there were very few like whoas, but then all of a sudden it hit me, oh no, everything I do, everything I'm doing in the wood shop is basically at this threshold.
Yeah.
So like just from my notes here, I was resawing on a big 18-inch bandsaw that was right at 85 decibels, and that was only a 4-inch piece of wood. Then at home on my little bandsaw here, I was cross-cutting a 2x4, and that jumped up to 95 decibels. 95 decibels, your audiologist spidey sense really kicks in, or...
Yeah, I would start being concerned for sure about 95 dB. And the tricky thing about noise in general is that it's all a dose effect. So it's not just these little snippets of the readings of what it is at that very moment, but cumulatively, if you're in the shop for 2 hours, that's a different situation than if you go in, you cut one piece of wood and you leave. Then it could be a little bit louder. You have more leeway. So you have to think about how long you're going to be exposed and how loud it is, and as well as how frequently. Are you in the shop every single day? Are you going once a week? And that can really be where there's the tricky math of that 85 dB becomes a much firmer cutoff and recommendation.
Okay. Just some more numbers for the listener. 1/2-inch bit rabbiting and a piece of pine on the router table, and the router was fully enclosed. It was at 92 decibels. And then our CNC was 87, and that is a continuous, like that's one of those ones that I hit run on and it can go for 2 hours without thinking twice. So I guess that would be one that would concern you, right, Kathleen?
Definitely.
Now, this is one that blew my mind. A wooden mallet on a wooden bench top peaked at 107 decibels. That's staggering to me, that the loudest thing we do as woodworkers happens to be a hand tool and not necessarily a power tool. Now are the percussive sounds more or less detrimental to hearing health?
So you tend to reach higher decibel levels with those sort of sounds just because of the interaction of the surfaces. Again, it's sort of the repetition of it that I would be concerned about, where it's you're hitting that 107 over and over and over again. But even, if you're really going for it, and perhaps we're talking about different materials, and you're getting up to 115, 120, then we're getting in a range where it's almost instantaneous damage. And the big concerning part of all of this is that when we're talking about the damage, this is permanent. And the frustrating part as an audiologist is that it's fully preventable. It's just people have no idea this is even happening. Ethan, you can probably speak more to this about your measurements. Am I right that we can get to instantaneous levels of damage?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Ethan, obviously everything we're doing in the wood shop, outside of quiet hand planing, there should be some care taken, some preventative measures, right? Is that your experience in your work?
Absolutely. Woodworking, some people do it all day. Some people are just out there. Personally, it's very short periods of time for me in between children and taking care of them. But I always wear hearing protection when I'm out there, and I'm always testing some of our new products, it's a great opportunity to try things out and see what works and what doesn't work in these environments. But it's definitely really important to protect your hearing in the shop.
So Ethan, can you tell me what the difference is between noise canceling hearing protection, which I hear a lot about and I've experienced, and it's like cool, but is that better or worse or the same than just putting on earmuffs?
Yeah, that's a really tricky question. So I'll try to break it down. First, in the difference in the technologies. So passive hearing protection is using something like foam or plastic or some material to block sound. So it doesn't require a battery. It doesn't require energy. It just stops sound. Pillows, drywall, foam. These are all passive absorbers of sound. They stop the sound. Active noise canceling, ANC, basically it uses electronics, which require power, whether that's a battery or they're usually a battery, but it could be plugged into the wall. That's where the term active comes from. They create an opposite wave that cancels out the noise. So if your noise wave is coming through, the electronics generate an opposite wave and it effectively cancels the noise instead of stopping it.
So I was trying to equate that to, it's like, if the noise is 4432, the passive or the active noise cancellation is going to send -4, -4, -3, -2 to equal 0.
You got it.
In a perfect environment. Okay.
It never works out quite perfectly. You never have perfect cancellation, but you certainly have noise reduction as a result. And I think we've all experienced this with active noise canceling headphones. Now, the big difference, and especially when you're thinking about safety, is that when your battery dies with active noise canceling, you lose your protection. And so when we think about, occupational health and safety and how the testing for hearing protection is done, it's always done with the product in an off state. So if you have active noise canceling that helps your hearing protection, that gets turned off for the testing that's done. And therefore, they test in kind of the worst case scenario in order to make sure that we are as safe as we can be. So that's where active noise canceling and hearing protection don't always fit together in the North America standards.
Okay. And I think that there's a confusion that we'll get to later on about the North American versus other standards. Eric, so ISOtunes has both active. Do you have noise canceling products and I know you have passive products that have Bluetooth connectivity and all of that. That would still, even though there's electronics involved, right? The hearing protection is passive, right? I've for the listeners, I'm holding up. Well, I don't know. They're my orange ones. They're my orange ISOtunes. These are the ones that live on my bandsaw, my 96 decibel bandsaw. So.
So, all ISOtunes products are passive hearing protection devices. So they offer that, that feature of passive hearing protection where they've been, tested to industry standards and given noise reduction ratings or given single number ratings in accordance with the passive hearing protection results. But we also have a number of products with a technology we call aware technology, which is basically an audio pass-through technology that provides ambient listening capabilities to the user through the passive hearing protection. And in those cases, all our products that have aware technology have a feature of active noise canceling, as some people would probably consider it, in that it's monitoring your environment. And when there is a noise above the 85 decibel threshold, it is going to reduce that sound to a safe listening level via electronics, which Ethan was just explaining is a different noise canceling feature from passive noise reduction.
Okay, so with the aware, you're basically getting the best of both worlds.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why, I would say more and more of our customers are starting to go towards this aware technology. And it's really kind of in line with what we're trying to do as a company, which is, if you want to eradicate noise-induced hearing loss, one of the approaches that you might take, and this is the approach that we're taking, is, how can you make hearing protection products that people really want to wear, right?
Yeah.
What do you have to do to get people to wear hearing protection products more frequently on a daily basis, doing all the things that they would, that might cause hearing damage? So yeah, ambient listening technology is one of those things where it was a major problem with passive hearing protection. If you put passive hearing protection in your ears, you lose your situational awareness. And, maybe that's fine when you're, operating a machine that's really loud, but if you can have hearing protection and situational awareness at the same time, that's going to be a better, safer outcome.
So, Kathleen, I like I said, these live on my bandsaw, and I put them on when I know I'm making loud things. I also have, I've had, one of you can tell me what these are. They're ISOtunes somethings that I've had for probably extras. Thank you. Probably 4 years. That they are like I'm doing just about anything, mowing the lawn, just putzing around in the shop, and I want to listen to music. That's what they go to. As a audiologist, that's probably the best case scenario for you, where people are just reaching for it no matter what, right?
Definitely. And to Eric's point before of trying to make it something that people actually want to use, that is an ongoing battle with audiologists of everything hearing health. You need to have something that's going to be the lowest barrier of entry. And if you can make it where there is something that is both safe and it's enjoyable to use, you can do everything you want to do, you are going to be far more likely to do it. It's just habit that you have to build. If you can listen to your music while mowing the lawn, fantastic. That's what people want to do. But to be able to do it safely is an absolute game changer. So I think that's something that ISOtunes is doing super well, of really being able to bring like a reality check to hearing conservation. Let's lean into what people actually want to do and how they want to use it, to make sure that people will use it consistently.
So, Eric, can you tell us how things got started at ISOtunes? Because I just remember all of a sudden there being, oh, great, there's an actual hearing protection that I can Bluetooth into my phone, and it's got ratings, and I know how protected I am when I'm listening to music. How long have you been with the company?
So I've been with the company more or less since the very beginning, because it was a little family business, and now it's still a family business, but it's like a larger family business. But we try to keep that family feel. But it started with a concept, with an idea, and that idea came from my dad. His name's Pete, and he had been in the safety, consumer safety, and personal protective equipment industry for probably 20, 25 years. And he really saw an opportunity where, the companies that were making hearing protection were kind of, missing the boat, so to speak, or missing the opportunity to put entertainment into hearing protection and communication technologies into hearing protection in a way that would make the hearing protection appeal to larger, groups of people, right? And appeal to more people and be used more broadly. So that was really the impetus behind starting ISOtunes, was sort of that visionary idea that he had to make hearing protection more appealing by incorporating the latest technologies that you would find from sort of leading consumer electronics manufacturers like Beats and Bose and Sony, right? The whole idea was, hey, you've got, tens of millions of people putting those things in their ears every day. What if we had tens of millions of people putting in devices that were safer to use and provided hearing protection instead? So that was kind of the idea. And, it started out with a couple, pretty basic products that led to, opportunities to, basically create a much broader range. And that, of course, has really been championed by Ethan and his team since they came on board. Ethan, what is it, almost 5 years ago now, four and some. We've really accelerated, ramped up our new product development. We've gotten into tons of different new technological capabilities to sort of help, see that vision through to fruition. And honestly, I think we're really only scratching the surface still to this day. We're we're a young company, seven years old. Launched our first product in 2016, and I really think we're still at kind of just the beginning of our story.
I think your father used to come. I used to see him at Fine Woodworking Live, and at all of the woodworking events. I mean, very
woodworking shows.
Yeah, very, very active. I didn't realize that was your father. Sorry.
Yeah. So when we first got started, we had this concept and we had a couple of products, but we didn't really know who it was going to appeal to most. And for a while, it was kind of like throwing things at the wall to see what would stick. And one of the very first things that stuck was we had a contact locally here in Indy that said, "Hey, you guys, like, there's a woodworking show coming up in Indy. You guys really need to go to this show and just talk to some woodworkers, because I really think this could be a great product for woodworkers." So we did, and I think we sold more product at that show than we had the last 3 months combined. So we were like, oh, okay, maybe we're onto something here. So we got hooked up with the woodworking shows circuit, and we sort of followed it around. We would do, I don't know, 9, 10, 11 shows in a year, all from like January to April, basically crammed in that period, as they are. So, we just spent a lot of time on the road, and that customer exposure was really great. It led to our first couple of retail partners. It led to lots of good exposure with, industry publications like Fine Woodworking and influencers in the space. And it was really the first community where our products found a home and found sort of like a passionate fan base, if you will. And so, really we trace a lot of our roots and our success back to woodworkers.
Well, that's cool, because y'all have been right in the thick of the community from the very beginning. So it's and I know you've been listening too to people. I think even the freeze or whatever I have, the weighted back strap or whatever it is, there's the connecting cable between the two ends is weighted, and therefore, and maybe Ethan, you could speak on this. Therefore, it doesn't flop around while I'm moving around on the back of my neck, which has always bothered me. So what do y'all do about comfort? Because there's got to be a lot that goes into making sure your products are comfortable too, right?
Yep. We've seen a lot of ears. That helps. When you've seen a lot of ears, and I don't know, maybe my team, it's kind of funny. People think we're weird. We're like, hey, we're going to look at your ears. Okay. And we're going to tell you what product's going to fit your ears the best. And someone's like, really? I don't believe you. And we look at their ears, we look at each one, and then we hand them a product. We hand them the right color ear tip to indicate the right size. They put them on and their jaw just drops. They're like, how did you do that? No one knows what the inside of their ears looks like. And no one really looks at other people's ears that much, but we've done a lot of that. And so there's a lot of unique ears in the world. We're never going to fit everybody, but there's also a lot of common features with first bends and second bends and angles and ear tips. And so we try to build a lot of that into our designs as best we can.
The first bend and the second bend. I'll just jump in here.
Yes, thank you.
Ethan is right, and Ethan, I share this passion with you. I when I'm walking around, I look at people's ears. It's weird. It's weird to do, but you do it if this is your profession. So first bend and second bend, all ear canals are essentially an S shape. So you definitely need to get around that first bend to have a good seal for hearing protection, to really take advantage of the actual noise reduction rating. And then the second bend, ideally, if you can get around both of those, that would be great. Everyone's is an S. The sharpness of the S varies by person. Your left and your right could also be different. And for better insertion, pulling the ear up and back tends to straighten out the canal.
Oh, that's why I do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you told me to. Somebody put it on a package one time, and I said, "Oh, let me try this." I was like, "Oh, that really does help." Yeah, you pull the tip of your ear up, but Wait, people's ears can be, so if somebody finds a good fit on like the blue tips or something, it might not necessarily be the same with the other ear? Huh.
I'm a small on one side and a medium on the other.
Weird.
And the only reason I really learned that is years ago, I had impressions taken of my ears. I mean, this was many years ago, and I looked at them and it was like they were drastically different.
Wow. How common is that, Kathleen?
It happens more than you think. I don't have a statistic, but as far as what would warrant two different sizes, but I do recommend that you analyze each ear individually and don't just assume that if you're one size on one side, you'll be the same size on the other. And so the impressions, that's for traditional, custom hearing protection, which sort of guarantees a good fit because they're custom built to your ear. But the expanding foam really does do a great job of if you're putting it in appropriately. And that's always the biggest thing with hearing protection. If you can put it in appropriately, there's great options that are, generic fit as opposed to the custom fit. It's just the training and that little bit of education, like pulling the ear up and back to make sure you're putting it in appropriately. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Ethan, do you have a statistic on how many people are using different sizes?
If this crew doesn't have it, it doesn't exist. I don't think so.
I don't know. All the ear tips are different. So for our ear tips, I would guess probably 10 to 20% of the time that I've seen a different ear tip in each ear gets a better fit than the same ear tip in both ears.
Okay.
So it's not that common, but common enough that, everyone should be aware of it.
Interesting. I had never even thought of it. I just assumed they're going to be the same. So let's take a minute now and talk about noise reduction ratings. What is a noise reduction rating?
I think that falls into my camp. The noise reduction rating is a standard for North America that basically tells you how good of a hearing protector you have. So it approximates the decibel reduction that you will experience with a hearing protector. So generally, there's somewhere between 20 to 30 decibel reduction. It's a little tricky because it aggregates all your different frequencies. I like to think of frequencies like a piano. You've got 88 keys. Well, you've got a lot more frequencies than that, but there's a variety of sounds that we all hear. And how do you aggregate all of those keys into a single number? Well, there's mathematical methods to do that.
Okay.
And so that's what this NRR does. It measures all the different frequencies, how much you get reduced, and puts a consistent standard to it.
So am I generally, just based on the small number of measurements I took, most of my tools are hovering 85 to high 90s. Kathleen, what kind of noise reduction rating am I looking for in my hearing protection?
Well, in general, the higher the better. That's just, me being a conservative with noise exposure. So, if you can get within, and a lot of ISOtunes, products are in the, 25 dB range, that is wonderful to get it that much of a noise reduction. Because 85, is like the hard cutoff, but really, I wouldn't want people to hover too closely to the high. If you can get it even lower than that, that is preferred for me. And just as a side note about the NRR and how it's, a difficult mathematical equation to get that one number. One thing that I always look for on labeling and, packaging that's important is the frequency response of seeing it based off of all of the different frequencies, because you can see incredible variability. And that gives you a much broader picture of what you're dealing with than just that one boiled down number. Because, 25 dB NRR they're not necessarily equal if you look at those larger tables by frequency,
Okay.
which I think helps, make a more informed and educated consumer.
All right, but then how do I know? Like, how do I know who to believe? How are you testing this? Ethan, how is NRR tested? And how?
Yeah.
I
So
mean, like, how do I believe you?
Yeah, the way we do it, and the way everyone should do it, is by sending the products to a third-party test lab.
Oh, okay. So it's somebody totally different.
Yep. So we send them to a test lab. The test is actually done on human test subjects. So they have test subjects that come into their lab, and the subjects, their normal hearing is first tested, and then they wear the hearing protector, and then their hearing is tested again. And therefore you can calculate how much reduction in sound you can get from a hearing protector. And so that reduction or attenuation at each frequency for all the different subjects is calculated. And by law, we include that in our manual and in our packaging so that you can see how much reduction you get at different frequencies. Because, as Kathleen said, that is probably more important than any single number like the NRR rating. You'll find that some of our products at some frequencies, there'll be 25 to 30 dB of reduction, but at other frequencies, there'll be 40 to 45 dB of reduction. So it varies quite a bit even within a product.
Okay. So you are sending it out, totally third party is testing this, and all of this information is in your packaging?
Yep. It's all, there's an NRR table in our packaging. It tells you the average attenuation, the standard deviation among the test subjects, and it tells you the NRR rating. So it's all right there. It's important to expose that to the consumers, because I think with your testing, did you say you were also getting a frequency response with your testing? So you knew that
sometimes I've been paying attention, and there are, like, the CNC, we were talking about this before we started recording. The CNC had this peak at 4.7 kilohertz that I felt was like, oh, that's right in the range that my hearing's super important. And, Kathleen, like, you had said, no, Ben, you're probably just starting to experience hearing loss. But it's true, I'm sure. But so let's talk about these frequency ranges and when they get affected, what starts to happen to everyone, not just woodworkers.
So, when you're looking at an audiogram, which is, the graphical representation of someone's hearing sensitivity, when you're raising your hand to the beeps, that we're going to plot them. Sometimes the configuration or the shape of the thresholds, dependent on frequency, can tell us what's causing the hearing loss. And noise-induced hearing loss tends to have a very clear-cut pattern where there's a notch. So it dips down, and how severe the notch is depends on how much damage has happened at one pitch in particular. You tend to see it at 4,000 hertz. So 4.7 kilohertz, you're pretty close to that. And what's interesting is that it doesn't really correlate to the noise that you're being exposed to. So it's not like if you have a low frequency hum going that you're going to get that notch down there. You'll still probably get in 4,000 hertz because of the way the hearing organ is structured. But you're right that it's definitely an important frequency, because what we also see when we plot familiar sounds on an audiogram is that you get a cluster of consonants that fall right in this 2,000 to 4,000 range, up to 5,000, that are super soft and high-pitched sounds and can very quickly get outside of your hearing range. So all of a sudden, telling the difference between sat, fat, bat, cat, hat, chat, I just said that really fast. It can be difficult to do because you don't have the hearing sensitivity you used to have potentially at that particular pitch.
Okay, so intelligibility. of certain phrases deteriorates in that range. What was the range again?
So it's 4,000 is certainly part of it. 2,000 to 4,000, 4,500 is a very important range, specifically for consonants. And that's usually the common mix-ups where people aren't missing a whole word, they're missing part of a word, which I think is a little bit of a misunderstanding with how your hearing works in general. Rarely do you lose it in a uniform manner. It's always specific pitches before others, which then correlates to certain speech sounds before others. So you can hear that people are talking, but perhaps understanding what they are saying is becoming difficult. The clarity sort of becomes compromised over time.
Okay, so, and then once that's gone,
it's gone, which is why as an audiologist, I think a lot of us are jumping on this bandwagon of fully embracing hearing conservation, because it's, as an audiologist, you break a lot of bad news. You tell people that they have hearing loss and that there's not, it's not reversible. So you have to talk about ways to manage it and rehab it as much as possible. But noise, that's the one thing. That's our big thing that we can latch on to. It's a little hopeful of, as long as you take care of your hearing, you can still enjoy all of the noise you want in the world safely. So whether it's woodworking or going to a concert, noisy restaurants, whatever it is, you can still do it all, and you can do it safely and prevent some potential damage in the future.
Okay, so now we kind of hinted at it, Ethan. SNR versus
SNR.
What? All right, let's go full geek.
Let's do it. So NRR, the noise reduction rating, is the North American method for calculating the attenuation of a hearing protector. SNR, single number rating, is the European method. So we often get questions. So we sell products in both markets. We test to both standards. And so it's a bit confusing, because where we might have a NRR of 25, so that says this product gets approximately 25 decibels of reduction. In Europe, using the math for SNR, we end up with about 30 to 32. So it's anywhere from about 5 to 7 dB higher than an NRR. So SNR is generally higher. So then we get these very difficult to answer questions. Is a European decibel different than a North American decibel? And no, a decibel is a decibel.
I just love the concept of somebody's so decibel and being better or worse than that.
You've got Celsius and Fahrenheit. Are these degrees different?
Those metric decibels.
Right. It's a great question. But it's not that the decibels are different. It's that how you take, I go back to the piano. How do you combine all of those keys into one number? What equations do you use to do that? The world has not united on how that is done, so we have two different standards.
Okay, so when you're looking for your hearing protection, you see a number. You don't just look at the number. You have to, especially, I would assume, ISOtunes products aren't going out to stores with both numbers. Is it both numbers? Oh, okay.
A lot of times we have both numbers, and next to each number there'll be an NRR or an SNR. We've got the testing and the results for all of our products in both standards.
So, but now the listeners here are informed consumers and can see what each one is. And
exactly.
Okay, so the next generation of hearing product from ISOtunes. What direction are we heading in, Eric? What should we be paying attention to?
Eric, you want to answer that one?
Can I take that one? Or
Yeah.
At risk of divulging the secrets to our success here. No, but we'll keep it pretty broad. Ben, we already kind of touched on it a little bit, at least conceptually, but it's all focused on making products that allow our customers to be more productive, to be happier, to do their jobs better, while wearing hearing protection. So to us, that's what next generation is about. It's about hearing protection products that enhance the user's capabilities rather than detract from those capabilities. And so there are tons of different technologies in communication, in the field of communications, in the field of like materials, right? That we could use different materials to make products more durable, to make products more comfortable. Electronic and communication technologies to make products more capable and make people more efficient or effective at their jobs. So really anything you can imagine under the sun that's going to get more people to use hearing protection products is something that we would consider building into our line. And that's really what the next generation of hearing protection is about.
Cool. So there's one thing that we didn't talk about, and I think all three of you could talk about this, the Safe Max thing that's built in. So ISOtunes products are cut off at 85 decibels. And why? So that's to keep me from hurting myself, right, Eric?
Yeah, it's a really controversial thing, right? And particularly so for Americans, because Americans very much have a mindset of like, hey, if I want to damage my hearing, I should have a right to damage my own hearing. So who are you to say that, I can't turn the volume up so loud to damage my own hearing? And we're just not willing to back down from that position, because we're first and foremost a hearing protection company, a safety company. We're building products that are designed to reduce noise-induced hearing loss and protect you from outside noises. We're not going to create a product, put it right in your hands and say, hey, this is going to protect you from noise, and also allow that product to do irreparable hearing damage to you. So it's really a values-based thing. And again, this goes back to being, an informed consumer, but they're not all companies that market hearing protection products are principled in that way. We'll just put it like that. And so, if you are the type of person that wants to wear a hearing protector, but then also wants to crank the audio volume up to 95 decibels, ISOtunes is probably not the brand for you. And that's okay. And we're willing to lose some customers. We're willing to have some unhappy customers as a result of that principle.
I had a hard time not slow clapping, but I will say this. I have been there and I'm going bloop, 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 because it gives you that tone, and it's your mom saying, turn it down. And, right. And it's that last one I've gone, oh, come on. I really like this record. And then I continue on with my life. And since I have the passive hearing protection, the 85 decibels is more than enough for me to rock out, and listen to Jellyfish Spilt Milk as loud as I want it to be, or as loud as I need it to be. But, so Kathleen, I'm sure as an audiologist, that's something that you probably enjoyed hearing, right?
Yeah, I think it definitely speaks to like what kind of company it is, and it is keeping consumer health at the forefront. People are, because you're taking it out of their hands, you're making the decision for them, which is important, because specifically with hearing, people are very bad at judging volume. Which is why people are really bad at telling what their hearing is like. People always think their hearing is better than it actually is. No one can really estimate. I have a mild to moderate hearing loss. That precisely. And with volume in particular, the way you experience volume varies. What 85 dB sounds like to you can sound different to someone else depending on how they tolerate loudness. So it's going to be very hard for people to judge it themselves. So I think it makes a whole lot of sense to just change the standard and put a lower ceiling, and people get used to it. You might not even have the appetite for going higher than that once you're used to keeping it at a lower volume, because how you're perceiving loudness changes over time.
All right. So Ear Doc on TikTok, do you recommend everyone go out and get a hearing test?
Yeah, I do. Which might, come across as like, well, you're an audiologist. Of course, you want people to get a hearing test. I think that whether it's a hearing test or a hearing screener, I do think it's really important for people to have an idea of where they are, because it's really difficult when you just get a snapshot of someone's hearing sensitivity and you have no idea where it came from or where it's going to go. The power is really in the follow-up. So we can start to see these patterns emerging earlier. So if we do see, for example, some indication of noise exposure, whether it's actually showing up as a notch on the hearing test where there's some subclinical findings too, then we know that we really need to talk about hearing conservation now and get to it before there's a change in threshold. Because by the time you get to a change in threshold, then we're talking the permanent hearing loss. So best way to know what you're dealing with is to just get a screener. There's online hearing screeners, or to get a full hearing test. There's online hearing screeners. Yeah. So when I am not working with Hearing Health Foundation, I am also working with Tuned. It's an online hearing healthcare platform. So there is a built-in hearing screener. There's a couple out there, a couple of good apps as well. And a lot of cool things you can do with it, but that's probably another conversation. Yeah, I'm sure. But it's making it easy. So same as, making hearing protection easy to wear is important, but making some sort of screening easy is awesome to know about. This is honestly, we talked 2 weeks ago, but I've learned a mess just in this conversation again. All right, Ethan, when's the last time you had a hearing test?
Oh, it was about a year or two ago.
Okay. You're all right. Kathleen
very good.
approves. Good. Eric, when's the last time you had a hearing test?
I plead the fifth.
Okay. All right. I bet you I'm about 30 years.
It's been a while. It's been a while for me.
Well, and that's usually what I hear. People, no matter what age they are, they tell me the last time they had their hearing tested was, fourth grade. They could be 90 years old and it's still fourth grade. So, you're not alone, but it's never too late. Just get it now, and then you'll have something to compare it to in the future, especially if you notice something new, like ringing or buzzing in the ears. That's a little bit of a red flag of something might be going on. And then we have something to compare it to.
Okay. So what are the calls to action? So woodworkers, we're all going to start wearing hearing protection pretty much most of the time in the shop, right? Passive hearing protection when possible, it should be, right, Kathleen? Or, because the battery goes out, all of a sudden your hearing protection is gone. Otherwise, do you ever recommend doubling up on hearing protection?
I'm always the more protection, the better. So I think it certainly helps. Ethan, I'll let you talk about the mathematics of it if you want to.
It's a little, I was actually talking about it over the weekend with my family.
This is July 4th, picnic.
Hey, happy July 4th.
Yeah.
And it brought into question, what is the math? And depending on your source, the math is a little bit different. But we'll just make it really simple. If you have two hearing protectors that are an NRR of 25, so you have earplugs and earmuffs that both have an NRR of 25, you do not add those together where you suddenly get 50. Some sources say it's 3 dB more. Some sources say it's 5 dB more. It's closer to 3 to 5 dB more. So you'd have 28 to 30, not 50 dB of protection.
Okay.
So you're going to say, 3 to 5 dB, that's not much. It's a lot because it's a logarithmic scale, and those 3 dB are worth a lot at that point. So that's a little bit of the math or mystery behind it. Did I miss anything, Kathleen?
No, I think that's it. I don't think people realize that we're talking about a logarithmic scale with dB, which then really should alarm people when we're talking about the difference between 85 dB to this 85 dB to 120 dB range you can get with various tools. That is a huge difference in volume.
Yeah.
And I guess bringing back 3 dB to maybe something more tangible. If you have a tool that's 85 dB, if you want to get up to 88 dB, you've got to bring in a second tool and put it right next to it. You've got to double the amount of sound energy to go 3 dB. So by doubling up, you're only getting 3 to 5 dB more of protection, but it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, and another thing to think about is woodworkers out there, we'll finish it up this way, is that if your tool you're working on is 90 decibels, keep in mind your dust collection is probably pumping out 85 decibels. Now, that isn't again, that's not doubling. Same with hearing protection. The source is not doubling, but that extra 3 decibels is going to start to add up. So I guess we're Kathleen, we're going for as high of an NRR as possible. And Ethan, we're going to trust the NRR ratings on the packaging because it's all third party, right?
All third party.
And Eric, if you want to listen to your music higher than 85 decibels, you shouldn't. Stop.
Sorry.
I love it. This has been super educational. I know. Thank you, y'all, for your time. We should all follow Kathleen on TikTok. I go on there once a week, if that, to see what the fine woodworking thing did. But I will start following more. And Ethan and Eric, thank you so much. And I've got 2 ISOtunes here, and I know a lot of other people who have them, and not as many as, if anyone's watching, Ethan has an absurd amount of ISOtunes in the back of his office. So, but thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you having us on the show.
Well, that does it for this episode of Shop Talk Live. Thank you again to the folks at ISOtunes for sponsoring this episode. And thank you to Kathleen Wallace, ear doc of TikTok. Everybody should give Kathleen a follow on TikTok. And everybody should head on over to isotunes.com and check out their array of hearing protection products. There's something that will work for any woodworker in their product line. I personally use 2 of their products constantly, and I'm glad that I have them in my shop. We'll see you next week with another episode. Have a good one.